Time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he says, all who spend in good cause. Good deeds are opportunities, sparkling bright and true, raising you in the sight of Allah and adorning Al-Jannah for you. So rush to earn his reward. Don't forget the oppressed. And when you go to sleep at night.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another beautiful episode of A Time to Please Allah with your host, Gabriel Al-Romaani. And it's great to be here again after a bit of a break. Alhamdulillah. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we hope that all our viewers are doing well. And we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to bless the show, inshallah, and continues to bless the viewers and the supporters of the show. And that we keep bringing, inshallah, great topics and topics of interest, topics that are related to the 21st century issues that the Muslim community at large deal with. And as Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu used to say, he used to actually forbid people from asking about issues that are just theoretical issues that would, conceptual issues that didn't happen, right? He would say that, this is something that you should only ask about issues that are possible, issues that are taking place, not to think about, some weird issues that, have no place or have not happened or not even, be able to conceptualize in our world, So things have to be relative, things have to be relevant, and alhamdulillah, that's what we try to bring here on the show. So again, I want to remind everyone with our Facebook page, which is A Time to Please Allah. Please go and like our page, send us a message, give us your input as to what would you like us to talk about, what kind of topics would you like us to bring forth. And always remember that this is a live show and we would like to take your input. So give us a call, the number's on the screen. We are in Dubai, alhamdulillah, and anyone can call from all over the world. And we'd love to hear from you and what you have to say. And speaking about interesting shows, things that are related to today's topics and today's issues. Today we have a special show, and at the request of someone that said that you guys need to talk about this because this is something so important. Why are people avoiding it? And inshallah, we'll try to frame it because it's a bit of a sensitive topic, and we'll try to frame it within the proper parameters that we don't upset anyone, but at the same time we speak the truth, and we try to bring in real life situations, real life cases, real statistics and information. And to help me with this, alhamdulillah, I have my dear brother, Nabil Aziz. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Good to have you, alhamdulillah.
Jazakumullah khair for having me back. Appreciate it.
So, Brother Nabil, let's, I think we'll just cut the chase because it's a topic that, you can't beat around the bush too much about. And I'm sure that if you're watching this and, you really need to pay attention and you need to let everyone know that this is going on right now. And it is about polygamy, okay? And I know that a lot of people are probably like, oh my God, did he just say that, right? But this is a reality that we are faced with. This is something that is part of Islam. And it's something that is quite taboo these days, right? When it comes to, many laws in many different countries, so-called, human laws and so on. People have an issue with polygamy. So let's go from, the first, take the first step and first define this term. So what is polygamy?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, thumma amma ba'd. Again, jazakumullah khair, Brother Jibreel, for having us back on. Polygamy or polygyny, that's one of the hottest topics you can talk about in terms of the sort of interest and response you'll get, and it always, in general, ends up being an argument back and forth,
right,
when it does get discussed. So stuff like marriage, stuff like polygamy, stuff like jinn, those are the stuff that people love to talk about.
It's like the hot topics, right?
But the problem is this subject is so serious that people generally don't give it discuss it according to its rights. So the first thing that we should do is we should frame the discussion in the correct way, so that the discussion can take place between both parties, the male gender and the female gender, the layman and the scholars, in the correct way, and it leads to a sort of a proper understanding, and it's discussed in a way that it doesn't harm anybody,
Right.
and it shows the actual benefits of this institution when it is implemented properly. So polygamy, for those of you who don't know, and probably if you're Muslim, everybody knows about polygamy, especially if you're a man. So polygamy is when either the male or the female has more than one spouse,
Right.
or partner. Obviously, we don't have polygamy in Islam. We have polygyny,
right.
where the male is allowed more than one spouse. In
Right.
our cases, a maximum of four.
Right.
And the opposite is polyandry, okay, where the female has more than one spouse, and this is not allowed in our religion. So when we speak about framing the discussion, we sort of have to put some ground rules, okay, how we're going to discuss this, okay. And the first and most important ground rule, and this is the one that's flouted almost all the time, is that we need to take this discussion seriously. And most of the time, when you talk about polygyny, it's almost in our daily conversation. It's more like a joke. You know, brothers will be joking about taking more than one wife. Sisters will be joking about how they won't allow their husband to take other wives. And like if he does,
so
then
this happens a lot, right?
Yeah, it happens a lot. This is normal, okay? Okay, so this kind of joking, I mean, it's not really appropriate. You shouldn't joke about something so serious in our religion. Of course, it's something from our religion.
Right.
And the brother might joke about taking more wives with his wife and upset her,
right.
and the wife will joke back. I mean, it could get out of hand.
Right.
And this kind of joking, it could reach the level of somebody apostating from Islam if he does it in the wrong way.
SubhanAllah.
Because we know that joking about anything in that is from our religion
Sharia,
is a nullifier of Islam.
SubhanAllah.
So people should treat it with the respect that it deserves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed it in the ayat, in his eternal speech, in his eternal uncreated speech,
Right.
that this is something that is prescribed in Islam. So we need to treat it with the
Okay, so
respect
let's start with this. I mean, let's before we get into the discussion, as a ground rule, a Muslim, man or woman, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Nisa, in Ayah 3, if you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with the orphans, marry women of your choice, 2 or 3 or 4. But if you feel that you shall not be able to deal justly with them, then only one, or a captive that your right hand possess, that will be more suitable to prevent you from doing injustice.
Yes.
Right? So this is the verse. I think the tafsir are just very clear, as maybe there's an exception here or there, in case of Ibn Hazm, who was not one or, but was and.
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, I think it's quite clear, and there's unanimous agreement among the scholars that this is something that is agreed upon, that it's allowed in Islam.
Yes.
As a Muslim, let's put aside all discussions and debates. Someone has to understand that this is, as you said, the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah is basically given an allowance for a man to marry up to 4 women. And this is something that both men and women, because sometimes men have issues with this as well, right? And we'll get to that in a second. But it is what Allah said, and we say sami'na wa ata'na. Right? There's no discussion about it as into like, I don't think this is correct. I don't think the verse says that. I don't think this is right or something like that. And as you said, saying something like that might take someone out of the deen, right? That negating this verse, negating the I mean, people talk a lot about, and they try to play with interpretation, right? But it's like saying like, a brother is sinning in front of me. It's clear as that. There's no ambiguity in this verse. There's verses of different types. There's verses that are very clear, and there's verses that are a bit ambiguous. Okay, this is a very clear verse. So people need to submit. So how does someone reach that state where they say, well, you know what? Yes, it feels oh man, it's not easy, no doubt, especially for the woman, right? Because she's the one who basically is, at that end where she has to sacrifice that. But then, at the same time, it's not easy for the man either. And I'll touch upon that later on. But how does one reach that state of like full submission, where they just say, Allah said it, this is it, I submit?
Most of the time, when people sort of try to play around with this ayah, it is not out of a sense of rejecting the verse, because obviously they can't reject it. It's in the Quran. It's black and white.
Right.
Okay, it's in the Quran. Nobody can outright say, "Oh, I don't like this verse," or "I reject this verse," or "Maybe this isn't right," or something, because that's obviously it's outright apostasy. Now, the way that they sort of play with the interpretation is because people have some things are difficult for people to accept.
Okay.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْقِتَالُ وَهُوَ كُرْهٌ لَكُمْ.
Yeah.
Fighting or jihad is prescribed for you and it is disliked for you.
Right.
So just like jihad is prescribed for the men and it is disliked to us, because in general people don't like warfare and war. And
Well, it requires
exactly.
a certain amount of bravery that a
Exactly.
lot of people don't have.
Exactly. So this is something that's similar for the women,
Right.
that it is prescribed, and the woman's nature is to dislike it.
And I've heard this from a sheikh that he was saying that this is the jihad of the woman.
Yeah.
And one of them anyway.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
So if the criticism is from the woman, then we can say we can give her, we be a bit more flexible in terms of having husn al-dhann for the sister, because sometimes it's difficult for them to deal with, even if they're not going through this situation themselves, for them to understand why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would allow this. And this is normal. People have difficulties with some of the ayat of Allah, some of the prescriptions of Islam, some of the teachings of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. People they sometimes have difficulties because of a struggle or a situation in their iman, or they don't understand something.
Also the surrounding environment.
Exactly,
It kind of dictates
exactly.
what's the norm of what is accepted. And it affects us no matter what we say,
So in this case, then it's up to the people who have knowledge to sort of clarify things in a correct way, and inshallah they're doing that, and also the du'at have to play their part, and society has to play their part. And in general, the issue is ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His infinite wisdom. Okay, He is Al-Hakim, Al-Hakim. He, from above the seven heavens, He prescribed this, and He revealed it through Jibreel alayhi salam to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa ashabihi wa sallam, that this is allowed for the men, and that's basically the end of it. And for us is to say we believe. Okay, and we don't make any sort of distinction between one verse and the other verse. All of it is from Allah, and we believe in it. Believe in all of it.
Just to make that we're on the verse, to bring out some common arguments when it comes to this, mostly from the women's side and from the men who won't accept it. But they say that but if you fear that you should not be to deal just with them, then only one, right? So they say, see. It's like you're not going to be able to be just with them, therefore only one, right? They say this is it negates. It says there, but then right away it negates it, and says that because come on, no one can be just with them. So what do we say to this? And it's becoming very, very popular, right?
Yeah.
What people say.
Actually, I had I had labeled this under the misconceptions to get to it afterwards, but since you brought it up, we'll take care of it now.
I guess we'll have to take a break, and we can get right back to it. It'll be a good start, inshallah. So again, we're talking about a very hot topic, brothers and sisters. It's polygamy or polygyny, and I hope that you're following us, inshallah. And we really want to hear. I really want to hear from brothers and sisters, specifically from sisters. Because as we said, it's not an easy thing. So I want to kind of hear what's the common issue, or what are they faced with when they hear this, or what do they feel, and so on. Just as a discussion. So our number's on the screen. Give us a call, inshallah. We'll take a little break, and we'll be right back on Huda TV.
To please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he says.
We can't just take knowledge and keep it as information. We have to transfer it into action. When he got up, he said one thing. Asalla nas? Did the people pray? In Hajj, for example, the primary example of how multiculturalism really looks like. All equal. I've got a dentist in Canada. Even though he's ripping holes in my teeth, he's got great akhlaq. I love visiting him. Identify the issue. Analyze it. Challenge it. And then try again. Because if you fail, big deal. Try again and keep trying.
If I think I lost my ablution, but I'm not sure, do I have to make wudu again? Is it allowed for Muslims to visit the graveyard, or is that shirk? Am I allowed to say Jummah Mubarak to someone? Can I get to know a sister before marriage? I have so many questions, and I feel that I've just reached a dead end. If only I could find someone trustworthy to answer my questions. Someone who speaks based on proof from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet.
Time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he says.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome back. A time to please Allah, and we are discussing polygamy. And yes, that's right, you heard it. It is the topic that is so taboo in today's society. Not so much here in the UAE, alhamdulillah. I mean, it's quite common where I live, or where I've lived most of my time here in the UAE. Most people, or a lot of the locals, mashallah, they have more than one wife, and big families, mashallah. And but definitely in the West, America, Canada, UK, Australia, right? A lot of minority groups of Muslims, it is an issue because it's, number one, it's against the law, and number two, the surroundings and the pressures of society, right, have pushed people to kind of marginalize this command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or this ayah. Sorry, so before the break we were speaking about the ayah, and sorry I cut you, but please continue.
Yeah. So we'll discuss the actual specifics and try to clear any misconceptions. But first, as we started on framing the discussion, it's important to sort of get the sort of paradigm, how we look at the issue, so that we can try to look at it from an objective an objective way. So the first one was take it seriously.
Take it seriously.
Okay? And the second one is that the men and the women need to stop following their desires and submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Sharia. Okay, for the women, okay, some sisters might think that this is against the women. Like, so, okay, sisters, you have to submit. Allah said it's allowed, it's allowed. But the brothers also have to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Sharia, because that ayah is quite specific. And there is some conditions to being able to
Right.
marry, to take more than one wife. And he's not allowed to harm anybody in
Right.
doing this.
Mhm.
Okay, not allowed to harm his wives, his children in doing this,
Right.
just to fulfill whatever he wants to fulfill.
Mm.
He might think he's following the sunnah, but
Mhm.
he might be on the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if a man has more than one wife, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, if a man has more than one wife and he inclines
Towards
unfavorably towards one, he will be
Mhm.
resurrected on the day of judgment with one side
Crooked.
crooked or messed up, you know.
Mhm. But I wanna just interrupt you here. One thing is, as you said, when this comes in discussion, people need to put their emotions in check.
Mm.
Okay, and this is something
Important.
obviously, especially on the women's side, but also on the men's side, as you were saying. And you said obviously the issue that men have to be just with them, right? They can't harm someone. Now, harming someone, would that be like, let's say you get married, but your wife doesn't like it and she'll be hurt by it or something like that? Would that qualify in that?
I'll come to that, inshallah. You're basically
Okay.
bringing up all
Okay.
of the important questions
Okay, khalas.
in
I'll have patience.
in a different order.
Okay.
Okay, but it's there. I've got it, inshallah.
Okay.
Inshallah. The funny thing is that today, the men and the women both are going to be disappointed. Okay, because it's
Okay.
funny because what the
I
Sharia
might
says.
have to.
What the Sharia says is what the Sharia says.
Okay.
Okay. So the third thing is, okay, first thing is take it seriously. Second thing is stop following our desires and
Mhm.
stop getting our emotions involved in it. The third thing is stop using our own subjective interpretation of the Sunnah and the Seerah.
Right.
Okay, people always sort of try to rationalize, oh, polygyny is allowed because of this,
Mhm.
and Rasulullah married 9,
Right.
and the Sahaba married so many,
Mhm.
and they sort of use anachronistic concepts sometimes and apply it to the time of the Prophet.
Mhm.
And the problem with that is, once you start trying to rationalize and say polygyny is allowed because of this and this hikmah or this and this wisdom for this and this reason,
Mhm.
now you've involved your own limited intellect in the in the scenario. Okay, First of all, you're a layman; it's not your business. Okay, if you're not a scholar, and what happens is for every rational argument that I can put forth for polygyny, somebody else can put another rational argument forth against polygyny, because arguments are not perfect, because
Right.
we're human beings. Our intellect is not perfect. Okay, so we need to quit trying to rationalize and using our own subjective rationalization in this issue from the men's side and from the women's side. Okay. The fifth thing is that we limit ourselves to the understanding of the scholars. Okay, because the scholars have basically gone through all of the evidences and sifted through the seerah and sifted through the sunnah and come up with the understanding that is most likely correct, because they have the training to do so and they have the knowledge to do so, and they have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them the tawfiq to do so. And the final thing is that we try to limit ourselves while discussing to the letter of the law, because and try to prevent ourselves from speculating as to the spirit of the law, because most of the time people end up speculating and they end up saying something that is not in accordance with what the scholars have said, just because they're trying to use their own hawa,
Okay.
yeah, even though they think they're using their intellect. Ultimately it's their desires. Okay, so now we go to clearing the misconceptions, and this is the part where basically both genders would get disappointed. So to answer the first question, basically, now we went through the verse, marry of women that please you, 2, 3, or 4, or if you fear that you cannot be just between them, then marry only one. According to all 4 madhahib, okay, monogamy, i.e. restricting yourself to one wife, is mustahab, it is recommended. And polygyny is mubah, permissible.
Permissible.
Okay, and that is according to all 4 madhahib. The Zahiris, they say that polygyny is recommended and monogamy is the sort of, if you can't marry more than one, then you just leave yourself to monogamy. So that's the official ruling of all the 4 madhahib. We won't really count the Zahiris because most of the time they go against the ruling of the majority. So the overwhelming majority, and we can say that we can almost say that this is the preponderant position of all of the four madhahib. Monogamy, i.e. restricting yourself to one wife, is mustahab. That is a recommended position. Why do the scholars say that? Because of not falling into the warning in the ayah. When you marry more than one, because you might be unjust to your wives. Okay, so that's the first part. I'm sure all the brothers are very disappointed, and most of them probably say, I'm going to start following the Zahiri madhab now. Okay, so no, that's following your desires. See, that's following your desires. Don't follow your desires.
Shopping.
Follow, fatwa shopping, exactly. Okay. Don't follow your desires.
You might have made a lot of people go on Zahiri today, huh?
Okay, so what the ulama say is that monogamy is mustahab and polygyny is mubah. Until and unless there is an apparent need for the brother to marry more than one, he should try to stick to one wife. And even among the contemporary scholars, they have this opinion as well. Shaykh Ibn al-Uthaymin, rahimahullah, in his explanation of Zad al-Mustaqni, he said, if the brother is able to maintain his chastity with one wife, it's better for him to stick to one. If there is a need for the brother, okay, because now polygyny is mubah, that means in and of itself, it's a neutral ruling.
Right.
But it takes the ruling of sort of the objective for why it is done.
Right.
Okay, so if it is done for a haram reason, then it is haram.
It can become haram.
Okay, if it's done for a makruh reason, it will be makruh. If it's done for a recommended reason, it can be mustahab itself. Or it could be done for an obligatory reason. It could be wajib itself. For example, somebody it's impossible for him. An example of why it could be obligatory. For one man, he's impossible for him to maintain his chastity with one wife. It becomes obligatory on him to stay away from haram zina. So he has to marry more than one wife. Okay, so that's the distinction. So monogamy at the moment is better for you to stick to one wife unless there's a need. What the Zahiri say is that we should consider it according to the man's ability. If he has the ability to marry more than one wife, then he should try to fulfill what is said in the ayah, because the scholars of Rasul say, since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned one after mentioning the multitude, then the multitude is given preference. Okay, so that's the ruling, inshallah. The second thing, and this is also going to disappoint the brothers, that the wife doesn't have to accept this if she doesn't want to, the first wife, for example, or the second wife. She doesn't have to accept that the husband can take more than one wife. He can't force her to accept it. For example, the wife is permitted in I think 2 of the madhahib that she's allowed to put clauses in the marriage contract that say the husband cannot take a second wife or a third wife, or he cannot even take a concubine. She's allowed to put those clauses in the marriage contract. Or, subhanAllah, if the culture of a people is such that the women do not accept polygyny, okay, or the woman is from a family that is known that they don't allow their daughters to be co-wives, then that culture, that urf, is as if it is a written condition in the marriage contract. So what happens when that condition is violated? That woman has a right to a divorce. Okay, she can go to the court and she can invoke this either it's a written clause or it's an unwritten clause that is understood from the urf. Okay, and she can say, I want a divorce because I don't accept this brother getting married. I'm not quoting the references, but if anybody would like the references, they can post on the Facebook or on the YouTube, and we'll get them the references for this.
And do you know the madhahib that make this? Because we studied last semester the fiqh of marriage, and we went through this, subhanAllah, with the scholars, and they were saying that yes, these opinions are there, but obviously, usually the scholars will always say, but when the ones who have the ability to look at the 4 madhabs and say, but the strongest opinion is that, and the strongest opinion appeared to be that the woman has no right to put a clause in, and they're saying that if a woman does that, I mean, the man can decide not to go forward for it, because again, it's a right listed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, going back to that issue of makruh, right? Let's say you are putting a condition, and the man at the time might not have any experience with the woman. Right. So now he'll marry this woman, but feel that he's not satisfied with her. He's not getting what he wanted. He might be facing fitna. The condition of mubah might change now to fard for him to get married to someone to continue his chastity.
Yeah.
Now, if he goes against that, or he'll either have to commit sin and continue in, in this, almost zina, a buffer where he's like tempted to do things haram. He can't lower his gaze and all that. Because of the fear of his wife that he put a condition, right?
Yeah.
And he'll be restricted. And that's where the scholars say that no, it cannot be.
Yeah. Those situations, do you go by on a case-by-case basis? So everybody would have to, on an individual level, you would need to go to a scholar and see how does your situation play out. So for the actual fatwa, you need to go to a scholar. But at the moment, we're talking about the general circumstances. And as you said correctly, two of the madhahib say this condition is not valid. The divorce clause on the event of taking a second wife or a third wife. Two of the madhabs say that this is not allowed, whereas the other two say it is a valid clause in the contract. And both sides have their arguments, inshallah, for and against. The third thing is that the husband doesn't need his wife's permission. This is the fancy one that the sisters love this one. And sometimes some Western du'at or speakers would like to say this one. This is not, there's nothing like this in the Sharia. But why would somebody say this is that is because of the previous condition that I mentioned, where the wife does not have to accept this. Either it's because of her culture or it's in the contract. So in order to avoid a worse situation occurring where the couple gets divorced, because that is something that is not really favorable, especially if they've been married a while or they have children and things like that, because divorce is something that's very hard on the family. Okay, so the husband, it's not obligatory for him to get his wife's permission, but it's probably a good idea if your wife is on board, because I mean, it can make your life hell. You might wish that you divorce all of your wives and go live alone. So it might be a good idea for maintaining your marital harmony. If you sort of have your wife's, she might not approve, she might not like it, but at least she's on board and she's accepting of it. She might tolerate it, and she knows the score. Now, the situation we have where a lot of brothers, and this is a common problem. It's a very well-known problem now, where they call it marriage bandit. Okay, basically the brother will marry so many women without them knowing that he has co-wives. And then he'll divorce them as and when he pleases. Basically, it's a serial marriage.
It's called hit and run.
Yeah, exactly. Serial monogamist or serial marriage or serial polygamist. Like he might marry 40 women in the space of like 10, 15, 15 years. And there's known examples of this. Exactly. Okay. So even though the brother doesn't need his wife's permission, and the sisters might not like this, but that's what it is. It's probably best for his peace of mind and his sanity to sort of try to make sure they're on board. The next thing is that the husband doesn't need to have any special reasons for getting married to him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed it, and that's the end of that. Okay, he can marry if he wants to fulfill his desire. He might be an old man. He might want a young sister, a young virgin sister. That's totally within his prerogative. Okay. As long as he's not marrying for some sort of haram reason, as long as this reason is permissible, then he can marry whoever he wants. Similarly, the opposite of that, there's no reason for the person to marry for some sort of charitable reason. Okay, so some people will say, oh, it's only allowed if you're trying to help out sisters who are can't get married, or they're widows, or they're divorced, or they're too old, or something like that. There's no stipulation like that. He can if he wants to. That might be a good reason.
There's a great ajr there.
Yeah, there might be.
Someone does that.
And the corollary of that is that some sisters will say, "Oh, how can you marry treating that woman as a charity case? It's like a lose-lose situation with them. You can't marry for your desire, and you can't marry to be charitable and chivalrous. Okay, make up your mind, sisters. Okay, so a lot of brothers would want to. They might be in a financial position to take on more than one family, and
Right.
they want to take care of their sisters. They want to
Right.
take care of the sisters of the ummah.
And I want to pause here because that is something that's really an issue these days. Being involved in da'wah, right? A lot of times we get emails, we get requests from sisters saying that please, I'm in this situation. Please find my husband. My husband just died. I have 2 children. Please find me a husband. I'm willing to be second, third, fourth wife. I was divorced, or this happened, or my husband this happened. Please find me a husband. It happens a lot, right? And it is an issue, right? And it was an issue at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And we find that in the seerah, whenever a sahabiya would lose her husband, a sahaba would not waste time. Mm-hmm. Right away they would take care of this woman. And the highlight that I want to bring up here is that they didn't look at her like, well, does she look like some kind of Vogue model or anything like that? And does she have no children? Because that's the thing. I mean, I get these requests or something that I put it forward towards the brothers, and the first thing is the brothers like, how old is she? Is she like 19 or 20? Is she blonde and tall? Does she have any kids? That'll be like the first thing, right? If you say 2 kids, oh brother, man, I would like to have no kids maybe, you know what I mean? Like their face totally changed. I'm like, brother, she's a good sister.
The brother who's not married, or he's already
married? He's not married. Or even if he's married. Yeah. Even if he's married, he will not accept. So let's say she, this will be like her second wife, third wife. Well, kids, bro, it's like headache, stuff, like really stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I mean, I'm not here to dictate the ahkam or, but, this is one of the hikmahs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that, the Prophet he made sure that he took care of the community. And in hadith, he says that, it's upon the ummah to take care, for example, of the children of, this woman, or of this, or of the widows, or, subhanAllah, it's there, So, people need to think about not only themselves. And this is where I want to highlight another point that I earlier wanted to make, that a lot of people, both brothers and sisters, when they think about polygamy, they think only from a sexual perspective. It's more sex, And they don't think about it that it's a big responsibility, right? It's a huge responsibility. And as you said, on the Day of Judgment, someone who might, be inclined towards one, he'll come out crooked. Not just that, but we might be asked about sisters who are around and, they're basically suffering and people are sitting around and doing nothing about it, And people had the ability, they were proposed to, they were given and they said, well, it's not that, doesn't look like some kind of girl from a TV show or anything, so I can't really go for it, I mean, people need to, it seems like it's sometimes very selfish on both sides, It's very selfish. So people need to think it's not just some kind of fun or some kind of, entertainment, but as a responsibility on the man and on the woman as well.
Yeah. You brought up a really interesting point, that now basically they married. And I mean, if you look at the marriages of the Sahaba, it was basically based on taqwa.
Taqwa, yes.
I mean, the brothers and sisters, I don't know if they're watching too much like Bollywood or Hollywood or like reality TV, but they have this odd idea of what marriage is.
It's Romeo and Juliet type.
And basically sometimes they say, marriage is not supposed to be about his rights and my rights. It's supposed to be about, love
just
and
love,
companionship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَجَعَلْنَا بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who puts love and mercy in between the two of them.
Yes.
For you is to treat each other according to the rights that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has enjoined you on. So you treat each other with taqwa, for the sake of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put the love and mercy and compassion in your hearts.
And let's say that doesn't happen. I remember reading a beautiful statement. It was Umar Khattab again, radiallahu anh, when someone came and complained about their relationships, right? And he said, how many households have been built
on love,
but on taqwa and of helping each other, right?
Yeah.
Right?
There's two incidences. One of the incidents is the man was trying to divorce his wife, and Umar asked him why. He said, I don't love her. he replied to him, is marriage only about love? What about mercy? What about compassion? What about kindness to her? And another one where a man asks his wife, I ask you in the name of Allah, do you hate me? And she says, don't ask me by the name of Allah. And he says back to her, no, I asked you in the name of Allah to tell me if you hate me. And she replies in the affirmative. So they go to Umar ibn al-Khattab and they tell him the story. He calls for the woman and he says to her, did you say this to your husband? And she says, she's obviously very apologetic. I'm the first of those to make tawbah to Allah. But he asked me to swear, he swore by Allah and asked me to answer, how could I lie to him? Umar said, you should have lied to him. He said, and then he's the amazing statement. He said, few are those houses that are built on love. Rather, they are built on taqwa and dealing with each other according to Islam. So the marriages of the Sahaba, they were fi sabilillah. They were for the sake of Allah, and they used to teach each other according to the rules of Islam.
Not to interrupt you, inshallah, we're going to take a little break. Very hot topic, very, very interesting, and mashallah, I think we're moving forward with some really good information. Inshallah, take a really short break, and we'll be right back, inshallah.
Please Allah, a chance to gain reward, I will spend on you, he says.
يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا حي يا قيوم لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين اللهم أحسن عاقبتنا في الأمور كلها وأجرنا من خزي الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم أصلح لنا ديننا الذي هو عصمة أمرنا وأصلح لنا دنيانا التي فيها معاشنا وأصلح لنا آخرتنا التي إليها معادنا واجعل الحياة زيادة لنا في كل خير واجعل الموت راحة لنا من كل شر.
We try to recap what we do here at Huda TV for the past week, and we try to share with you some of the latest news that is happening behind the scenes here at the station.
Living Islam would love a cooking show to be aired for Arabic dishes. Also, more programs for children regarding manners.
We want to go ahead and take a look at our YouTube page right now and see how it looks as it stands. Well, I'm on the screen right now, but I'm not on TV. I'm actually through YouTube, as you can see right there. It's the same exact thing that you see on TV here live. It's exactly the same thing that is on our YouTube page through our live streaming. A great way to stay in touch with us.
It's my first time to call Huda TV, but I like it too much.
Because there is no program in Huda TV that it is not important for our Muslims, inshallah.
Time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward, I will spend on you, he said.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We got about 50 minutes, alhamdulillah, and I don't know, this topic has a lot more to be said about, so let's get into it, inshallah.
Okay, so the next misconception that people have is that you're only allowed to take more than one wife if you can treat them all absolutely equally. And that's totally baseless. Because the verse says you have to be just between them. Now, justice between them does not mean across the board equality. Okay? Take the example of spending on your wives, what is called nafaqah in Islam. In the madhahib, they distinguish first of all, they distinguish according to one, the status of the woman, and also they distinguish according to the status of the man. So, for example, say you're a brother. This is unlikely, but I'm using an extreme example just to demonstrate. Say a brother is married to a noblewoman, okay, and he's also married to a commoner, okay, a highborn and a lowborn. According to the understanding of the scholars, you don't spend on both of them equally. You can't, because, for example, if you spend on the noblewoman less than what she's accustomed to being spent on, then it will be an injustice for her. And similarly, from the other perspective, you spend on the commoner more than what she's accustomed to, it can become a fitna for her. So each woman is spent according to their level. For example, a rich woman is accustomed to having a servant. She's entitled to that servant. The husband has to pay for that servant for her. But a commoner woman who's not accustomed to having a servant, she manages on her own. She's not entitled to having a servant. I.e., it's part of his obligation to purchase that servant and put it at the service of the rich wife. Whereas for the regular wife, the commoner wife, he's not obliged to do so. So, I mean, this is common sense as well.
We definitely have to have another show for this, because I might have to not agree with that, but for a certain reason. But I'm not gonna, you can keep going.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you just read the books, I mean, you might think, oh my God, this is so like classist and racist. But no, I mean, this is practical. Just think about it. How would you? I mean, you can't really expect a woman from a rich family to be spent on the same way as a woman from like a middle class family or a low class family. It's not the same. Similarly, if you have one wife with five kids, and another with no kids, it's common sense that you won't be spending on them exactly the same. Rather, what the scholars say is that we determine the wife is spent on according to her status and according to her needs and according to the husband's ability.
Right.
Okay. So, the spending doesn't have to be equal, okay? What does need to be equal is the time that you apportion for each wife. So, you have two wives, you would spend every other night with one wife. So, you'd give them one day on, one day off, or 2 days on and 2 days off. Okay? You would split your time equally. Even the gift giving, the scholars say that you don't have to be equal in giving the gifts, as long as you don't intend favoritism by giving that gift. Say I give an expensive gift to one wife, okay, but I give the other wife a gift of a not equal value, a lesser value. As long as I wasn't intending to favor that wife, then it's fine. It's not considered injustice. And in the Hanbali madhab, basically, they say the husband doesn't have to spend on them exactly equal in every way, because of the hardship that entails the husband. Now, a husband might have enough finances to take on 2 wives, but he might not have enough finances to pay for them absolutely equally. Like his first wife might take 2/3 of that amount, and the second wife he only might be able to spend 1/3 of that amount because of the hardship involved.
One thing you said about the time, spending time with each other, there's some exceptions there, really fast, because if, for example, the woman agrees from before, the situation, right? As in the case of Sauda or our thing. And then this is a whole different discussion. But there can be exceptions there, right? Where, for example, there's a pre-agreement where it says, okay, you're married, but I can only give you this much time or this much time, and this is something that is agreed upon. Yeah.
So each party has their rights, and they can choose to give up their rights.
Exactly. Right.
So as long as it's voluntary from their side, it's okay. The sister might say,
and not pressured or basically,
I mean, there is some sisters, they're career sisters. They have a job, they run a business or something. They only need their husband you just come by two nights a week. It's okay. That's enough for me. Or they might like their personal space. Okay. Right. So as long as the one party gives up their right willingly, that's fine. Yeah. So we've established now that monogamy is mustahab, okay, and polygyny is mubah, unless there's a need to marry, in which case it takes the relevant ruling. Okay, that the wives don't have to accept that the husband takes a co-wife. Okay, the husband doesn't need the first wife's permission. Okay, the husband doesn't need to have any special reasons to get married. Okay, he can marry for whatever reason he wishes, as long as it's a permissible reason. Okay, and the last one is that the justice between the wives doesn't mean that you treat them absolutely equally. And you mentioned, and I just remembered right now, about the condition of the heart. Okay, you can't control your heart.
Right.
Okay, a husband is not able to control his heart with respect to which of his wives he is more inclined to through his emotions.
Love,
yeah, exactly. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't hold us accountable for that.
Right.
What we're supposed to do is we do our best to be just between the wives, and they say, what the scholars say is that justice between the wives is giving them what is sufficient. Okay, giving them what is sufficient according to what the husband is able, and then splitting his time equally, except for those exceptions where we mentioned.
And obviously trying to have the kindness and the mercy.
Exactly.
Even let's say he's not in love with this one the most or whatever, but still obviously the mercy and the kindness, the love that he can give, and so on. Obviously that this is something that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, basically, I wanted to sort of talk about some of the arguments against polygyny. Alhamdulillah, amongst the Muslims, they'll be a bit apprehensive about it, but at the end of the day, they have to accept it. They'll use some sort of, sideways arguments to try to get out of it. But most of them, almost all of them, inshallah, will accept it. Now, the problem is that when you have ideologies and cultures that are not sort of accepting of, tolerant of other ideologies and other cultures and other sort of perspectives and other ways of thought, that they will try to impose their ideology on others. So if we take, for example, the arguments of secular liberals or other religions against this sort of institution of polygyny. Let's take the most the strongest of the opponents would be those people who are secular liberals. Okay, right. And basically we're just going to go back and forth and highlight the hypocrisies and the logical fallacies in their arguments. Okay. The first thing is that, I mean, if you're living in the West, okay, you'll find that in Europe and America, all manner, they call them, I'm using the very polite term they call them alternative lifestyle. Okay, you know about the alternative lifestyles? Yeah? Yeah? So, I mean, I don't know how sort of explicit I can get, but I'll just mention them, a few examples. So, homosexuality is now, it's a norm. Yani, you're like weird if you're not, if you're a normal person, if you're a heterosexual, you're like odd. If you don't like heterosexuals, if you don't like homosexuals, now you're like, basically you're like a Nazi and you want to, basically. So they have homosexuality. They have what's called polyamory. Do you know what polyamory is? Basically, they have a group of people, men and women, and they sort of have an open relationship with each other. And it's like, I don't know, it's like basically a group like relationship.
Right.
Yeah, so the man with the man, the woman with the woman, the woman with the man, whoever they switch partners, whatever, no problem, it's okay. Recently in one of the European countries, they legalized animal brothels.
Oh my God.
Seriously.
No,
seriously.
Which country is
seriously. I think it's one of these Danish countries. Yeah, one of the Scandinavian countries. Okay. Okay. So, and you can have a man, whether he's married or not, he can have as many girlfriends as he wants. Nobody's going to bat an eyelid. Right. If he's unmarried, as many girlfriends as he wants. If he's married, he can have as many mistresses as he wants. It's not illegal. Adultery is not illegal in Europe.
Right.
Okay, and it's not illegal in 29 out of 50 states in America. So they're totally fine with adultery. But the minute you say, okay, I want to marry more than one wife and give these women their rights and enter into a binding legal social contract with them,
it's over.
And everybody loses their minds, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is so backwards. This is so oppressive to the women." How much oppression are you doing with all your babies that you fathered with women who aren't your wife? Teen pregnancy, all these problems, homosexuality, sexually transmitted diseases, Okay, people going crazy, having relationships with animals, and all of this is okay.
There's just a statistic I want to mention that 2 to 3% of all children are product of infidelity, not of outside of marriage. We're talking about infidelity, like, you know. So that's a big number, 2 to 3% of all children. So
and if you look at how many people are below the poverty line in many of these countries, it's usually single moms.
Right.
Okay, so I mean the women are being, they're not sisters, but the women are being oppressed.
Oppressed, yeah.
Okay, but when the Muslims, they want to marry women, they want to take care of them, they want to spend on them, yeah, because it's obligatory for the husband to pay for his wife's upkeep and maintenance. Okay. That's when everybody says, okay, khalas, no. Okay.
Nabil, I have to stop you here because we've run out of time. I think we need to get back here and continue this another time. Maybe next time, inshallah.
Tell the people to post their comments. Maybe we can get some pointers on
I
what
think
to talk
people
about.
are, yeah, I think, you know, if people are a bit apprehensive about discussing this issue, but definitely we invite you to write your comments on Facebook, inshallah, and Nabil's on Facebook as well. You are, right?
No, I don't use Facebook.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You can comment on behalf, or you post on behalf, and Jibril will forward it to me.
Right. So yeah, if there's any comments you would like to, or something that you didn't agree, like I didn't agree with a few things, so we can maybe debate after in another episode. But if you have some issues that you want to, you know, talk about and ask some of the proofs that you know, things that he was mentioning, I'm sure that you'll be happy to post them. Again, we're out of time. Inshallah, we'll see you next week with another amazing episode of A Time to Please Allah. It was a great show. Thank you for coming. Inshallah, I think we'll have you back probably next week or the week after.
Inshallah.
And continue this, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
A time to please Allah, a chance to gain reward. I will spend on you, he says, on all who spend in good cause. Good deeds are opportunities, sparkling bright and true, raising you in the sight of Allah and adorning Al-Jannah for you. So rush to earn his reward, don't forget the oppressed. And when